Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the opening of this year's IFX Expo 2014 in Macau. And I'm the person who said last year only a madman would have a foreign exchange conference in a casino. But I'm very, very glad that it is, because this conference gets bigger and bigger every single time, to the point now where we're now taking out what appears to be a massive area compared to last year. And an extremely good representation across the industry here today. We're going to hear across the course of 2 days a number of things, both good and bad. We're going to be hearing about liquidity and execution, of course, of connectivity, new technology, a new thing called deposit conversion, which I've only just discovered today. Obviously, on the marketing side, on social, on mobile, on regulation, unfortunately, domicile, also very important these days, and of course, Asia, and in particular China, which obviously is an incredibly important thing both for the industry but also for the region. And as I mentioned before, I'm always very, very impressed with what Michael and Gal and the rest of the gang who put this show on achieve. It does get bigger and bigger, like it's leveraged 100 to 1. But always, always very, very impressive. And as is customary for any foreign exchange conference, you always have to start with the BIS survey figures, right? How incredibly boring that is. But if I kick off with a couple. So as you all know, $5 trillion a day, that's what we're up to. That's all very impressive. That shows very good growth. And the people in this room and the people at this conference represent several hundred billion a day of that. From an industry that was basically virtually nothing 10 years ago, that's very, very impressive. What is also very impressive is that there's over 1,500 people attending today. And by my recollection rather, I imagine that means that there will be over 20,000 beers will be drunk over the next 48 hours. That was a joke for anyone who was paying attention. Good, okay, right, now we can warm up a bit. Also 74 booths. Please do go visit them. They paid a lot of money to be here. 7 panels, 2 days, and 1 Macau. 1 big, beautiful Macau. Now, seeing as this is IFX Expo Asia, as is customary in Asian cultures, I'd like to start by going back. So a short history lesson, if I may. In 1271, Marco Polo left Italy and went to China. Packed up his Gucci bag, put on his Prada saddle, on his horse called Ferrari, and went to go and meet the Chinese. Now the reason why I raise that is extremely important, because he had with him a very, very useful commodity. He had horses, much larger horses than what they had in China at the time. And this, in the year of the horse, is rather apt. And he exchanged that horse, or selection of horses, for silk, which was an extremely valuable commodity in the West, and therefore started the Silk Road. He took that back to a town called Venice, which became one of the greatest cities in the world, and therefore it's rather apt that we meet here today in the Venetian Hotel, business people from all over the world, to meet and transact, to do business, to talk about what is the world's largest and most international commodity, currencies. So I think there's a lot of genesis both from going back to where we are today. Now, a brief introduction of myself, a selfish plug. My name is John Volomir. I represent a company called R5. We're a new emerging markets liquidity pool for Brazil, India, Indonesia, and of course China, etc. if you want to know more about that, come and see us, which is a good segue into Mingler, which is an advertising you'll see on the way in here today. Mingler is an app that you would have all been told about or emailed to. It gives you instant updates on the agenda as well as the panelists, what's being discussed here today, a lot of background information from Forex magnates. I do recommend that you download Mingler and use it because, most importantly, it's a way for meeting various people here today. There's 1,600 of you, so there is a very high likelihood you may miss a couple of people that you did actually want to talk to. Use Mingler. It's very, very good. And of course, that is half the reason for being here in the first place, is to meet your colleagues, suppliers, customers, etc. Now, speaking of meeting people, our panelists represent 5 corners of the marketplace: CFDs, binaries, technology, commodities, options, as well as some emerging market stuff. So without further ado, before I take up any more time, I'd like to now introduce you to the moderator of the next panel, Mitch Eaglestein, who will be taking over from me. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope you appreciated the history lesson. And maybe someone will offer silk horse trading crosses on their platform soon. So to start, I want to let each of the panelists take about 1 minute to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Tomas.
My name is Tamas Zabo. I work for IG. IG is a company that offers CFDs, Forex, binaries, and commodity trading. Little bit out of place. Well, I wouldn't say out of place, probably a strong word, but we're predominantly focused on CFDs, although we do offer Forex across all our markets. Forex is predominantly our main market in Asia, but from a revenue perspective, CFDs are quite significant. I myself have worked at IG since '96, so I've been in the industry for an awfully long time. I worked in our London office. I was head of the dealing operation there, and I moved to Australia in 2004 to head up our Australian office, which is now the dominant player in Australia, with about just shy of 40% market share there. I look after the Asia-Pacific region. We have offices in Singapore and also Japan. We have a rep office in Beijing. And we are also focusing more on Asia, expansion into the Asian region where we don't have an office, which I think a lot of people here are focusing on at the moment. It's in the regions which don't support regulation of the product at the moment. There's a lot of interest in how best to go about growing that business.
Hi, I'm Stephen Reiter. I am the CEO of Sentry Derivatives. Our product is FX options, although we're now adding gold options as well. It'll be launched in the next few weeks. We bring a platform and liquidity to any broker as a white label product, so that a broker can offer options to their customers. We bring the package because most brokers are very good at acquiring customers, maintaining customers, payments, etc. But options are a lot of extra work. Options are a great product. I think we're going to see tremendous growth in options. My background is all derivatives. I had a 20-year career with Salomon Brothers, if anybody is old enough to remember Salomon Brothers, and Citibank. I was last global head of FX options for Citibank. So it's what I like to do. It's a great product, and I think it's a way for any broker to differentiate himself and offer a great institutional style product even to the retail customer. So I invite you all to come by the booth and we can speak further.
Hi, I'm Sean Delks, Managing Director with Forexware. We're one of the leading back-end and front-end technology solution providers for this industry. I've been involved in the building financial solutions for the technology world for about 20 years. And we've recently come out with a lot of new products. One of them is our FX Starter Kit that's catered towards the new brokers starting up and smaller retail customers. And we also have an enterprise solution for some of the larger brokers. We've been getting a lot of traction recently specifically in the Asian region, where we're seeing a large growth period. Thank you.
Avtar?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Avtar Sandhu. I look after commodities at Philip Futures. Primarily is product development and anything that relates to commodities. A little bit about Philip Futures. We are a brokerage firm. We have regional presence in Jakarta, Bangkok, KL, Hong Kong, and a few other cities. We have been around for a couple of years, and the way we look ourselves is we are a regional player with a global outlook. Myself, I've been working with commodities for a pretty long time. The beard is almost white, practically all white. So, and commodities, as you know, is a pretty wide field, and I've been with it for something like 20 years. And it ranges anything from gold, crude oil, palm oil, to the base metals. Thank you.
Racheli?
Hello, my name is Racheli Asman. I'm with MarketSpose. MarketSpose is a technology provider for binary options, front to back. We are working with leading brokers, providing with them with the technology, allowing them to integrate the technology to their existing back offices in order to provide a seamless experience for the retail traders. We are working with full compliance with different regulations around the world. If it's the Japanese FSA, ASIC in Australia, in Europe, and many more. We also delivering our own algorithms for pricing of the binary options. And we recently also partnered with leading brokers around the world to provide liquidity for binary options, meaning that brokers who want to fully STP binary options can do that and actually gain a rebate on the volume.
So Racheli, to start, what do you feel will be the next big product in Asia and why?
I guess it's quite obvious that I will say binary options, but let me a bit explain why. First of all, we will just look at this conference. I was walking this morning in the exhibition hall, and I think I counted already 12 technology providers for binary options. And I think last year we've been around half of it. And it's just because of the demand we see here in Asia. I think it's something that we talk also every conference about, the education, how much it is important for brokers to provide education to traders here in Asia. And I think this is kind of the advantage of binary options. It's simplicity. We are talking about a product with no leverage, no less look. Actually, the option, when you buy an option, the only risk you have is the premium, so there's no stop loss and other more difficult things to understand that you have with FX for new traders. And this is why there is a limited learning curve for binary options, and this is why I believe it's one of the greatest success that we see here in Asia. And maybe to give just a bit of numbers that we see in MarketSpose with our brokers. So even if I'm looking at the statistics, so the volume per trader per month that we see in binary options was actually doubled for all of our brokers, and for some even tripled.
When you talk about the volumes increasing, and you mentioned a rebate before for STP,
yes,
I know that a lot of the binary options will give the rebates based on client trading losses. Is the rebates that you're referring to based on the volume?
Yes, exactly.
Or is it based on the trading losses?
The rebate that I'm referring to is based on the volume. So once you decide to fully STP the binary options, you're obviously not taking any risk, and this is why you're getting the rebate from the volume.
And do you think that that's a trend that's going to continue, more volume-based rebates on?
It's exactly what I was starting to say, that we see the volume per trader actually increasing. So it means that smaller broker, it's harder for them to take the risk themselves. And this is why exactly the reason why we started with the STP mode, to allow this industry actually to grow, to allow the trade sizes to grow. And for allowing that, you actually need liquidity for binary options, which is something that wasn't there since the product started. And maybe just to continue a bit about the statistic, just to relate to Asia. So I started saying that the volume that we see in MarketSpose were actually grow by 5 this year. And maybe the most interesting statistic, and I will finish with that for the broker, is the ARPUs, the average revenue per user per month. And we see across Asia an average of $2,000 US dollars. And in countries like Malaysia, for example, we see an average revenue per user of around 3,500 for countries like Malaysia. So I think if you just think about the lifetime value, so I think it's easy to see the growth in this market.
Do you have something to say?
Yeah, actually I'm really not familiar with binary options. I'm basically into futures, options, swaps. All of them are exchange traded. But what I know about binary options is what you read in the papers. Maybe, Rafael, you can tell me what's happening with binary options in the US and Japan, where the authority says, most of the time, it's no-go for most of the brokers.
Okay, I'd be happy to answer that. Actually, Japan is our main market. When our company started, our first client was a Japanese broker. And from the early days, binary options was regulated in Japan. The way it was regulated is according to the underlying asset. So meaning with our FX brokers, the regulation that we were of compliance with is the FX regulation. What happened in Japan, that in 2012, the volumes were around $7.5 billion. And the regulator decided that he wants to regulate this specific binary option. And he came up with a detailed specification for binary options, and we recently launched this product. And so far, it's been quite a success, and we're actually looking to launch this product also. It's under the Japanese regulation outside of Japan.
Okay, great, because I need to tell this to my risk manager, because when we actually discussed binary options some time ago in my firm, and they said, and the risk manager says, no go, it's not transferable, the exchanges won't touch it, and things like that.
So I cannot disclose, but we're actually now discussing with one of the exchanges about our platform, and we hope that in the coming years we'll see more exchanges offering binary options, and I guess IG can tell more about NADEX, the binary options exchange in the US. I believe we'll see more growth of that.
Actually, I'll just say something on the subject. In Japan, the regulation has been very interesting for binary options because it's actually forcing the market to look more and more like real options, because customers are able to both enter and exit trades by regulation all the way up to expiration. So it's becoming a very different product, much more like it is in the US, where it's traded in exchanges where there are very strict regulations about it. But the trading of binary options is almost entirely extremely short-dated. It's in the next 15 minutes, do you think euro is going up or down? Win, lose, the odds are, as published. But what's interesting, I think, is that by regulators forcing binaries to look more and more like real options to publish prices, first of all, actually, I wouldn't agree that they're not leveraged products. They're very much leveraged products. It's a question maybe of how you define leverage. But I think it's more obvious when you look at the Japanese market. But that's okay. They are what they are. Just like with real options, what I call our product, vanilla calls and puts. If you buy an option, the most you can lose is what you pay for the option.
Are you saying that a binary option is a fake option?
I didn't say it's a fake option. I said it's a different option.
Different option.
It's a very short-dated option. It's used. It's used in a very different way. It's used to express extremely short-dated views.
Yes, I would agree with that. And do you think that by having shorter-term views, it gives the trader less of a chance to be correct?
I think that's up to each individual trader to decide, but you can't...
Well, Racheli, in your experience, do you find that traders are more or less profitable on the short-dated options versus the long-dated?
Not at all. From our statistics, we actually see sometimes the opposite trend. It all depends which trader are you. We see actually algo trading. We saw companies actually building robots on top of our platform to actually enjoy this short trading. So I think it's the trader to decide whether he wants a weekly, a monthly, or a 20-minute option. And even for the longer options, by the way, we always provide full liquidity so traders can buy the option and doesn't wait to expiry and sell it before. So,
Stephen, do you have a different view on that?
No, all I wanted to say is that because binaries are very short-dated, they're not used to express any kind of a long-term view. They're not used as a hedging tool, a hedging product. They're really just a very short-term. In the options professional industry, the binary options are also called European digitals. They also have a name in the market. In the professional market, they do trade as real options in the major banks, and we call them bets. That's
And
the name.
what about the fungibility? Because I believe you can't open with one binary and have it cleared with another at this time. Do you think that'll change?
Since 95% of the binary business, and somebody can please correct me, is, well, I'm sure trades less than an hour. I don't think fungibility is the major issue.
Just a question. Has there been any risk management issues with binaries? Pretty concerned with that. Because for every futures clear trade, there's a counterparty to it.
So Thomas, I know that IG has made significant investments into managing binary options, setting it up in a regulatory way. You guys are a large publicly traded firm. What do you have to say about managing risk with binaries?
Yeah, just one thing I want to say. In my introduction, I didn't want to steal Raquel's thunder in terms of binaries, but we own Nadex, which is the only legal way to trade options in the US, and we offer...
Trade options or trade?
Traded binaries, sorry. Binaries in the US, and we offer binaries throughout all our offices, and we were instrumental in coming up with the regulation with the regulator in Japan on the way options currently work in Japan. But in terms of answering your question, managing risk, I mean, it's very difficult to hedge risk on options. So it's very important that there are large amounts of liquidity from your clients. Because if there's small liquidity, then that introduces risk. You need each way flow to keep the risk low in your binary offering. That's why it's very difficult for firms to start doing binaries themselves. I think most firms that try to do it themselves, there's a few examples, I won't name any names, but they since stopped doing them because it's actually quite difficult.
So, but then with IG, if it's an exchange product, do you guys have to have like at least 3 market makers competing for price, or have you managed to find a way through legislation to actually be the only market maker on those binaries?
It's a disintermediated exchange, which means that clients can be members of the exchange directly. They don't have to go through a broker. But in terms of market makers, we are currently the only market maker. We are looking for more market makers, more liquidity on the exchange. And we are also looking for more brokers to sell the products as well. So it's morphing into what you would see as a common and garden exchange.
And then, so Stephen, I know from what I understand about market making, it's a little different. It's one thing to be a market maker when you're the sole exclusive provider and get both sides of the trade. What do you think it would take for binary options to evolve to a point where people could aggregate multiple market makers and each of those guys could still make some money, maybe not as much?
The truth is, I'm not sure that they need to. When we traded in the professional market, if a customer came and said, I want to make a $1 million payout on Eurodollar for 3 weeks, we would trade that, and it was a very ugly, nasty option because the gamma can be infinite. As Thomas said, if you don't have a broad distribution of trades, it's very difficult to hedge. At the retail level, a binary option is a very nice product because you'll have strikes. Actually, regulation in Japan, for example, is making that more difficult, and the US. But in unregulated places where you have strikes everywhere and customers on both sides of the market, it all kind of averages out into a very nice, simple book where the brokers can do very well. Compare this, as Thomas said, you've only got one market maker on the Nadex. We have on real options 7 banks, major banks, giving us prices into our platform. Real options, trading, offering us prices. And we pass everything through, as opposed to, sorry?
Well, real would imply that the opposite is fake.
I call them vanilla options. I'll go back to the technical name. We have a slogan for it, but yes. I have to distinguish between binary options and vanilla options, which are calls and puts with unlimited profit potential, unlimited loss potential.
And then, Sean, from your point of view, do you see a lot of demand from brokers with the binaries? And in Asia, do you find that happening a lot?
It's certainly increasing. You know, we're seeing that Asia obviously is the biggest market for binaries. We're not seeing a lot of traction right now outside, you know, in the U.S. It's certainly mostly over in Asia. And, you know, there's certainly...
What makes you say it's the biggest market in Asia for binaries, as opposed to, like, Middle East or Europe?
I mean, that's where the customers are. That's where the, you know, the most aggressive traders are. You know, that's the majority of the people in the business.
And from your experience, which binaries specifically are the ones being traded the most?
Obviously, the shorter the period are the most most attractive to the customers, especially in the retail market. I mean, the retail customers They like to be in and out. They're not looking for anything more of a long-term view.
Stephen?
I was just going to say the title of the session was the next IT product, and you asked us to speak about where we're going to see the growth. So if we can offer some words on that.
For sure. Go ahead.
Well, we started off talking about the BIS survey. In the recent BIS survey from April, the largest growth in all the sectors of the BIS, and the BIS doesn't talk about binary options, was options, which means vanilla options in particular, which experienced a 60% growth in the last 3 years, which is much greater than any other sector. And I think that we're going to see tremendous growth in Europe and Asia as well, as this product is being brought to larger and larger numbers of end users and end traders.
Thomas.
I'd be bold enough to disagree. I mean, we've offered binaries, moved on to options now. We've offered options for many, many years across all our platforms, and they're not particularly popular. They're complicated, and all the work that all our companies have done is make products much easier, more accessible for people who aren't market professionals or even market professionals. And options have shrunk in volumes in a lot of the exchanges, and even our own volumes. It's really not that popular.
So I think that the next panel, we're going to have someone from the BIS survey come in here.
Yeah.
Because that can make an interesting discussion as well. But
Maybe.
I do understand what you're saying, because I also have witnessed, at least on the retail trading side, a lack of adoption for the vanilla options when it comes to FX brokers.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean on
At the retail level,
at the
very retail level, absolutely. In fact, we don't even want customers who are depositing $100, $500. They don't have knowledge about options, and I agree. You have to know about options to use them. So I think we're going to have tremendous growth